Hello everybody, my name is Trupti Kapadia, a lawyer and CS by profession. Today we are here to discuss planning and managing of our finances. So when we hear the term financial planning, it always comes to our mind that this is a very complex subject involving complicated numbers. But let's simplify it today and try and understand what exactly does it mean. When we say finance, what is the word that comes to your mind? When we say finance, it is nothing but the money that we hold. So, all the income or all the money that you get as your pocket money is your finance. Of course, we all know what planning is. Planning a birthday party is something that we have always done for ourselves, or we've looked at planning a trip. So, when we are actually planning a birthday party, what are we really doing? First and foremost, what we will do is we will prepare a list of guests. Thereafter, we will try and decide how much money will I be able to spend for this party? And then we will actually decide upon the activities, the venue, so on and so forth till the completion of the task or the party. So what essentially we are doing when we are planning is giving a sequence of steps for the completion of a task in a particular order. So when we say planning our finances, we are actually saying the same thing. We are going to plan on where do I get my money from, how am I going to actually spend, how will I derive maximum benefits out of my money. That is in simple terms what we call financial planning. Now the question here is it only meant for our parents who are earning, or even for us who receive money as pocket money or gift? Now here, what we can actually look at dividing in our mind is any money that we get, whether we are earning or as pocket money, is a source of income or our income, which is our finance. So when we are dealing with finance, everybody needs to plan it. Hence, the first question answered, financial planning is for one and all. So let's understand the roadmap of this chapter. What are we going to go ahead with in the financial planning? First and foremost, we will try and understand the psychological aspects. How or what is a relationship with money, and how do we treat money or what we buy with money? Then that leads us to the next thing, that how do we plan it? Which means what are the steps that I need to follow to be able to get the maximum of the money that I earn or the income that I receive. Thereafter, we look at different forms in which we can maximize the savings and put a very efficient plan in place. After understanding the steps and the process, we will conclude this chapter by doing an exercise wherein we will be applying all of these principles. So let's move ahead with a question. Let's dive into the subject with a question to all. How many of us dream to be poor? Finding it strange? Obviously, the answer is nobody, or I'm sure nobody has raised hands of dreaming to be poor as such. Let's look at how our actually mind perceives money. You will all agree with the last statement that we all dream to be rich. We always want the latest gadget in our hand. We want the latest game to be played. We want to wear the best of clothes. We are always looking out and getting tempted for more in our life. our monkey mind is always jumping to have more and more and more. But have we asked a question to ourselves very consciously that how will I be able to procure everything that I desire? From where will all this come? And we all know the powerful tool that we need to procure it is the power of vitamin M. Vitamin M is nothing but our money. The power of money is what we need to buy all the things that are there in our wish list. So, we need to stop here and understand when is the first time ever did I understand that this is the legal tender of exchange. You remember the first time the money was given to you and you ran to the shop to get a bread for the family. You had understood by giving this legal tender of exchange, I will get goods and services in return. So psychologically and subconsciously, we have already perceived money to be the powerful tool to get us the goods and services. With this mindset, we are very clear that I will need more of this vitamin M to be able to fulfill all my wishes and desires. So let's move ahead now. So this story is about a study that was done way back in 1970 with a group of nursery kids. The study was about what kind of self-control can kids exhibit. So what was the task? There were few marshmallows, colorful, juicy marshmallows that had been kept in front of these kids who were sitting in a circular format, and the marshmallows were kept here. The task given was, in case you exceed 15 minutes, you walk out with 2 marshmallows. But if you are unable to resist and you pick up the marshmallow before 15 minutes, you just get 1 marshmallow. It was very surprising to see that actually almost 2/3 of the kids ended up picking up the marshmallow in less than 3 minutes. So, which means that just 1/3 of them were able to resist the temptation of picking up the marshmallow and actually going back home with 2 instead of 1. Now, let's try and see what happens further in this story. Again, in 1988, when these kids had grown up a little more, the same bunch of nursery kids, a follow-up study was done. And it emerged that this 1/3 who had gone home with 2 marshmallows and were able to resist the temptation were actually the ones who were more competent. The parents had very clearly told that their kids were way more competent and they were able to tackle everything in life far more better than the 2/3 that were unable to resist the temptation. So what are we trying to look at here is the psychological or the human mindset, how it is actually carved out to not be able to resist temptations. Further, another follow-up happened about the same kids in 1990. And in 1990, it emerged very, very distinctly and loudly that again this 1/3 were the people or the students who scored extremely well in competitive exams like SAT and Z. So, the moral or the outcome of this entire research was very, very simple, that at an early age of 4, the students who were able to exhibit self-control and were able to resist the temptation of these juicy marshmallows were somebody who were trained to be able to be patient and wait for the better fruits to come in future. Hence, very, very clearly, this 1/3 exhibited complete sense of control, while these 2/3 lacked self-control. Now, having to think about it, the same thing applies in our life also. When we are talking about different things that we wish to do in life, that is nothing but most of the temptations. And this self-control topic will get us to the first building brick of our financial planning. So the backbone of financial planning, or the key or the first brick that we are going to build, is understanding the difference between need versus wants. What is a need? Need is basically an essential, without which living life is going to be very difficult. So clothes, food, house, all of this are our needs, without which survival of life is going to be very, very difficult. What is want? Want are the non-essentials. Good to have, but not very important for our survival. We can easily live life without all of the luxuries that we dream of, but we will not be able to live life without understanding or catering to our needs. So the objectivity to understand need versus want is going to be the essential and non-essential part of it in our life. Let's look at this picture here, which will further help us to classify need and wants from each other. In the picture, we can see a coffee mug. We see some food lying, or rather I would say food items lying there. We also see books. We see a cell phone. And what we see is cars in the mirror. Now, these are multiple items that in our day-to-day lives we are actually coming across. Classifying this between need and want. Coffee mug means having a beverage. So a glass or a mug of coffee or tea in the morning or in the evening is something which could be our need. But a milkshake or a fancy ice cream that we want to have at an every hourly basis would definitely not be need, but would be a want. Food items. We see some food items. So yes, when we are snacking or 3 meals in a day, that is your breakfast, lunch and dinner, are our needs. But a McDonald's burger every day surely doesn't qualify as need. It will be a want. Moving further, books are something that enhance our knowledge, give us a progressive path in life. Hence, books will definitely qualify as need. Cell phone. The COVID world has changed everything into a digital mode. So even classrooms were in digital form. So cell phone today can be classified as a need in many ways, but essentially just a smartphone is enough. We do not need an iPhone. So dreaming about an iPhone is definitely a want. and not a need. Similarly, cars. When I start earning in life, that is definitely a luxury. Or is this something without which I can easily survive? So it is a want at this stage in life. Hence, I'm sure we understand the difference between need versus want very, very clearly. And this objective classification will help us take those wise decisions. Whenever we are about to buy something, we just need to ask ourselves a question. Is this my need or is this my want? If it is my need, surely I need to spend, which means I don't have to exhibit self-control there. But if it is my want, I have to definitely exhibit self-control. So now, just putting the blocks together, the marshmallow example or the study clearly led us to understand that younger the minds are, better we can train them. So a self-control imposed at an early stage in life will discipline a child's mind, or in the growing age, the mind would be accustomed to self-control. And leading it into our finances, if we apply it, when we exhibit good self-control between our needs and wants, it will take us in the space of being financially well, or well-being of our finances. Hence, what we try to come here or understand here is that the first block or the backbone of financial planning is making that first call, whether it is my need or want, and exhibiting self-control wherever it is required. The more we are able to discipline our minds, the better space of finances that we will get into. So let's move further to the next slide. So let's then look at the first block built was need versus want. Now let's look at how do we apply this block in the need versus want in financial planning. Now, when we talk about financial planning, it essentially would mean needs plus wants to be distributed well with what I have as my income. So I get a pocket money, which I have to, in a disciplined way, divide into my present needs and my future needs. My present wants and my future wants. So what are we saying? When I talk about needs, it is not something that I need only today. There would be something that I would be needing in future also. Like today, my shoe is worn out. I need to buy new shoes. After 1 year, I will need to buy a new uniform. So the first example is your present need. The second example is your future need. In both the scenarios, we need it, means there is no choice. It is essential. So present or future needs are qualifying as essentials. Now, wants will also have the same logic. What are wants? Wants are something that we desire. Today, I am desiring, or I want to have this new game which has come in the market. My all friends have it and I want that new game. So that could be my present want. My future want could be when I'm at the age of 15 or when I get turned 20, I want to buy my new bicycle. So that is going to qualify as your non-essential but future want. So need ho ya want, it will be present or future. Now, how do I prioritize, or how do I understand what should I give preference to? Clearly, my essentials are something that I cannot overlook. So, my present needs are my immediate priority. My future need is where my next focus should go. After this, I should be looking at my present wants and then looking towards my future wants. So, the first block we built is how do I rationalize my spend and how do I maximize what I am going to get out of the money that I have. Let's try and understand it a little more deeply in terms of why do we say that the earlier you start, the better. Now, imagine that there are some seeds that you are sowing at the age of, say, 10 years or say 15 years. By the time you become 21 years, this seed of a plant that you have sown and watered and taken care of it every day would branch out to be a very flourishing tree by the time you are 21. Which means that while you are in your heydays or when you start earning, you will already start reaping the benefits. Your mind is already trained to have self-control. When you are earning, you will already be able to save more by having very efficient need and want categorization. And you will reap the benefits of your sowing of seeds. Now, just imagine that instead of this, I actually decide to start at the age of, say, 35 or 45. I may not be able to reap the benefits of all that I have done, because by the time I will be 60, the tree will also grow. And at that age, I will not reap the benefits. So very, very important for us that training our mind, not losing out on the younger days when we are earning to save for ourselves is extremely important. So this being one of the building blocks, what we can actually conclude here is that as much as possible, I have to save. Saving will come from self-control. The earlier I will start, the younger I will be able to save, because by the time I am 21 or 22, when I start earning in my life, my mind has already learnt this lesson and it will start saving for future, which means in future I will lead into a financial well-being. Right? So now let's move further ahead on this PPT and look at the various stages that are involved. You remember the first slide when we spoke about financial planning, we spoke about organizing or planning a party, and we laid down certain points out there. So the first step that we had mentioned was that I will prepare my list of guests, I will prepare the money to be spent, then I will decide firstly the date when my event has to happen, then I will decide all the activities. And we said that financial planning was extending a chronology or a sequence into the planning of our finances. So now when we are looking at financial planning, what is my first step? to identify the goal. What was the goal here? The goal here was birthday party. Right? Because we knew it was a birthday party, that was the goal of the event. So first and foremost, what are we deciding is where or what am I wanting to do? So what is that I want to do? I wanted to do a birthday party. Then we tried to understand what are the essentials that we will need. Which date will I be able to do? How many people am I calling? What kind of money I will need? That is basically going to take care of these two stages. That what do I need to do first? How much money will be I needing? And ultimately, if I have to do this at the end of 30 days, I will have to work backwards and see at which date each thing has to get over to be able to organize this party within 30 days. So very similarly, first and foremost, we establish the goal. The goal is, okay, I want to buy new pair of shoes. Which brand? How much money it will take? How long will I have to save? That is the process that will break down into different steps of financial planning. Let's move further first and try and see the first step. How do we identify the first step? So, the first step is identification of your financial goals. Now, here let us take a very practical example. I'm sure everybody has used, the app of Ola or Uber to kind of book a cab. What happens when you open the app? You first have to give an input of your destination. Just imagine when you open the app, your location is captured. But until and unless you give this input, there will be no further processing that will happen. Only when you enter the destination, you will get all data points to process. How far is my cab? What is the fare going to be? Which kind of cab will I get? And depending upon whatever are the inputs we get. Suppose we get a fare which is extremely high. We will decide, no, I don't want to book this cab. So all the data points to process emerge only and only after you have actually defined the destination. Similarly, in your financial journey as well, until and unless we know what is the goal, we will not get any such data point. Which means that first and foremost, I need to define what am I out there to achieve. What is my destination? My destination will decide how much time I will take. My destination will decide which vehicle I have to take. My destination will decide what the speed I should maintain. All of this comes out of the app only and only once the destination is given. So very similarly, in my financial goal, if I write, I want new shoes. How many of us feel that this is a good financial goal to set? Most of us would feel that, right? Now, if I say this is person A's goal and person B is actually a little more clear about his choices. So, he says, I want Reebok shoes costing rupees, just for now we can just say 1000 rupees for this example, which I will buy after 3 months. he says, A says that I will try to buy the shoes as soon as possible. As soon as possible. For which I will save as much as I can. Now, what do you think is the gap between A and B? While A is knowing that yes, there is a financial goal that I have, his goal is not really a smart goal. There is no understanding about how much he will actually save. What is the kind of money that he will need to buy the shoes, what kind of shoes he wants to buy. So there is an absolute ambiguity in absence of your financial goal being smart. Whereas in the case of B, he is very sure that out of the 2000 pocket money that I get, how much will I have to save to actually achieve $1,000 in 3 months. So say something more than 333 is per month that he will have to save. Now, what makes his goal smart? Let's try and see that. So, in the case of B, what is happening is he knows what is his pocket money. So, he is specific. He knows I want Reebok shoes costing 1000. I have to save say 333 per month if I have to buy these shoes. So the goal is having everything very clear. It is specific. What do I want to buy? I want to buy shoes. How much will it cost? It will cost me 2000, which is measurable. Now, is it achievable? Of course it is, because it is having B is having a pocket money of 2000, out of which only 300 needs to save. So obviously it is achievable. If, for example, his pocket money was just say 500, then it would have been very difficult for him to actually achieve it within 3 months. But here, because it is 2000, he can easily achieve it, right? So what is happening is his goal is very specific. His goal is very clearly measurable, not just about how much money he will need when. It is also clear that in a particular month, if he is not able to save the amount that is 333 rupees, he can measure that I am not on track. Whereas in the case of A, he doesn't know how much he has to save. He doesn't know what his shoes will cost. He is just saying that I will do as much as I can, as soon as I can. So there is absolute vagueness and ambiguity in the entire goal setting. So our goal, in order to be powerful and taking us progressive ahead, needs to be smart, which is there in the case of B. So, specific, measurable. Is it relevant? Shoes were worn out. He needs to buy new shoes. So, yes, it is relevant. How much time? 3 months. Very clearly he is mentioned. So, it is time bound also. So, when we say our goal needs to be smart, it should be framed in such a manner that the specific cause or the specific thing that we are going to achieve should come out. It should be measurable. We should know how much we have to save every month. We should know what is the cost that we are looking at. it should be achievable, which means I can't sit with 100 rupees and dream about buying an iPhone. That is not achievable. But if it is within my pocket money, I should be realistic and relevant with my goals and set a timeline. Otherwise, is a ever moving target. Like, you know, the donkey and the carrot. The carrot is in front of the donkey. As much as the donkey moves, the carrot is also moving along. So it is an ever moving target when you do not have a specific timeline laid. Here, because I have a specific timeline laid, I have a finish line. And because I have that finish line, I will be able to cater to my goals in a much more efficient manner. So that's about identifying financial goals. When I say financial goals, means use of money to buy something that I either need or want. Any financial goal needs to be smart, to be efficient, to take us progressively ahead, right? Let's move further to the next step now. So this is exactly what we need to do to our financial goals also. Kab se we are going on talking about financial goals, financial goals, financial goals. What are these financial goals? In simple terms, our present needs and wants and our future needs and wants. So again, we go back to the grid and we talk about present needs, we talk about future needs. This is my essential. Then we talk about present wants and we talk about, or rather present needs, and we talk about present wants. This is my non-essential. So, like in the case of the phone, the cell phone, the home screen, we filtered out whatever is more important to us. We filtered out whatever is more of use to us. So very, very clearly, when we are distinguishing between needs and wants, what is more important to us is survival. And survival will happen with essentials, which means that everything to do with needs is always going to be my priority, and everything to do with wants is definitely not going to be my priority because it is a non-essential. It is not matter of survival. It is good to have a luxury that I care for, want, crave, but definitely not something which is essential for my lifetime or my living. Hence, again, going back to the goals, if I have one goal which talks about I want to buy a pen, a very reputed pen, say we say a Parker pen. There is another requirement that I want to buy a new book. Since my old book has got over, I need to buy a new book. Then I say I want to buy a cycle. And I want to gift a friend on his birthday. From this 4, clearly we understand this is my present need, because of which this will gain priority. After this, my present want is a Parker pen, which means that I have to gather money for the Parker pen that I want. Parker pen may be costing, say, we just for this example, we say 1,000 rupees, and a cycle may cost around, say, 12,000 rupees. So clearly between two wants, we know that this I can cater to immediately. This is something which will be my future want. In this priority, this friend's birthday is coming very soon. So now the choice that I have to make is between the Parker pen and the friend's birthday, because both are my present wants. So what is more important? If I have to go to the birthday party and attend the birthday party, I will have to gift. Hence, I will have to see to it that I definitely cater to this first and this second. So do we get this sense of prioritizing now? Always needs come first. Between my wants or between my needs, I have to bring up the chronology, the ones which are actually more important and immediate to deal with action. So wherever there is a time boundedness that is coming in, that will gain priority if the task is important. So the goal prioritization is very, very clearly trying to give us a sense of understanding that what is important, what is urgent, what should be immediately attended to, and where have we to exhibit that self-control on our wants. Let's now go further and move to the third step. So the step 1 and 2, we identified the goals. We laid the priority. Now we have to estimate the amount. So basically 3 and 4 step, that is your goal amount estimation and time understanding, will go hand in hand. Like we had seen in the SMART goal that we had first built up. We had very clear understanding that the goal which was laid by B was more specific and not vague, which means it clearly mentioned what it wanted to buy. It clearly mentioned how much he would be able to save every month and whether it was achievable or not. So here, let's again look at how this comes to play when we are actually going into financial planning stepwise. Goal identify, we have done. Prioritizing, we have understood. Let's now look at how the time or amount estimation really comes to play. So, if I have to say that I want to buy an Atlas cycle costing 12K, which is 12,000 rupees per se, after 3 years. My present pocket money is 2,000. So for 12,000, that I am actually, the cost of cycle is 12,000. So if I have to collect 12,000 at the end of 3 years, what I need to first do is every year I need to collect how much? So clearly we know that every year I need to save 4,000 rupees. Now, how much do I need? I need 12K. 4,000 rupees every year. Now, if I further divide by 12, that is the amount that I need to save every month. So, how much amount do I need today to be saved for something that I want to do in future is what our step 3 is all about. Now, again, when we look at this goal, is this a SMART goal? To begin with, our first litmus check is going to always be whether my goal is SMART or not. Is it specific? Yes, it is specific. It clearly says, I want to buy a bicycle. Which bicycle? Of this company. This company ranges are this, which means I am able to measure how much money I will need at the end of 3 years. Again, how much money I have to save to be able to gather that. That also I am able to calculate. So, whether it is how much I have to save or how much I will need, it is very clearly measurable. My pocket money is 2000 rupees and I have a span of 3 years to collect that money, which means it is very clearly achievable. Relevant because by that time I can ride on my cycle and save on my travel costs to school or college that I'm going to. Time bound, of course it is, because we have defined 3 years. So very clearly, without an amount estimation or without a specific measurement, we will be very lost like A was. If I say I am going to save as much as possible, now that as much as possible will be very individual number which can just move around and extend our goal for years. Because if we do not classify between needs and wants, I will go on spending more and more on my wants and I will not measure whether I am saving enough for my financial goal or not. So very, very clear that the third and the fourth step are extremely important. Now, if we have to look at the fourth step without moving to the next slide, which is time estimation, we just stick to this slide only and try and see what it is. The next slide would mean that I remove this from our financial goal. I just say I want to buy an Atlas cycle of 12,000 rupees. Now just imagine if I do not have a time range within which I have to buy, how will I ever move ahead with any of this? Hence, I had mentioned that the third step of goal, financial goals, and the fourth step go hand in hand. So, quickly, if we have to say is, my first step was identifying this particular goal that I am looking at. Now, those financial goals will be divided into whether it is a goal for need or goal for want. Then it gets divided into whether the need is immediate or of future. The want is immediate or of future. And we give an order of ranking or we give an order of priority. Eventually, the third and the fourth step come to play in terms of getting our entire goal setting completed. It would mean that giving how much amount in how much time do I need to save to be able to complete my financial goal. So let's move ahead and try and see the next one also, which is your time estimation. Like I said, if those 3 years, if this 3 years is not there, we will have no sense of time. And when I say no sense of time, which would mean that I don't know my finish line. I don't know where I have to finish. Hence, 3 and 4 go hand in hand. Now, when we are talking about this, one more important aspect is that if I have a long period of time passing between my goal setting and goal completion, there is continuous number of years that I will be spending, and clearly inflation is going to kick in. What do I mean by that? Very, very simple, that today when you are actually say in 2020, maybe your bread, a small half bread packet maybe costed 15 rupees. But come 2024, the prices have gone up and become 20 rupees. So when we are assuming how much we will be able to save, we also have to take cognizance of the fact that my expenses will be continuously rising because the prices of things that I'm consuming today will be higher going forward. So that is one new aspect that the time factor kind of brings in. We definitely have to understand that inflation is one of the very key factors in our goal setting for long term that plays an important role in estimation of what amount we would have to save. Because if I am simple, if I have 1000 rupees in 2020, I would be probably be able to buy 10 things. If my pocket money continues to remain same, which is 1000 in 2024, also it is 1000, what will happen is I may only be able to buy 8 things now because the prices have gone up. Which also means that the amount of saving that I was doing, when we said that we have to save, say, a particular amount every month, whatever that amount was coming to, if we have to say 500 every month, I have to look at that my expenses are going to go high consuming the same things, and now whether in the changing scenario will I be able to save or not. So time and amount are very crucial when it comes to long-term financial goals. Inflation is a very important component that we all have to take care of whenever we are talking about long-term financial goals. Long-term financial goals essentially would mean goals that we set for future. After 8 years, 10 years, like I would say that at the age of 35, I want to own my own Rolls Royce. I want to buy a fancy car. That is something that we are talking about long term. Short term would mean that after a year, I want to do something. So when we talk about long term, there is a good long passage of time because of which prices and what we can save will play a very important role. So I hope we are now clear with the stages that we have already gone through. And let's move further in terms of what else is important from a goal setting perspective or our financial planning perspective. So when we are now on the stage that we have established our financial goals, we have given priority to it, we know how much we have to save and in what duration we have to save, which means that our SMART goals are in place. How do I achieve it? Is my next question. How do we achieve? How do we budget? What is the basis of budgeting, or what is budgeting per se? You know, so many times when we get our pocket money and we recklessly go spending about it, very quickly, say in 15-20 days, our money is over. And we find ourselves going to our parents again and saying, I don't realize or I don't understand where all my money went. I would need a little more money from you. Now, the reason why it went all over the place because our budget was not in place. Budgeting basically will actually give a direction to your money where it has to be spent, rather than your money going out of our hands recklessly, and then we finding, oh my God, where did it go? Instead of encountering that question, when we budget or we put an estimate of what should be my amount of spending, is when we actually give direction to or control to where the money is to be spent. Let's look at certain budgeting techniques. When we talk about budgeting, it simply would mean what is the division that I will do between need and want. What kind of balance will I strike? Now here comes a very beautiful rule, which is the rule of 50, 30, 20. Now what is this rule? This rule simply gives us an understanding that in what way can we divide our money very wisely and very systematically so that we can optimize or gain maximum of the money that we have on our hand. Now, 50 is basically something that I have to put towards my needs. So imagine that my pocket money is 100 rupees. Out of this 100 rupees, 50 rupees essentially has to go for my needs. Suppose my needs are greater than 50 rupees, then we have to prioritize, which means the first 3 goals which fit in, or first 4 goals which fit in this 50 rupees are the priority that it will have in terms of defining that what is my need for this month. What can fit into this 50 rupees? So what we are saying is, out of my 100 rupees pocket money, I should only have 50 rupees towards my needs. If my needs are more than 50 rupees, I have to apply that rule of priority and bring down my needs to 50 every month. Next, of course, we cannot be without our wants. It cannot always be I go to school or I go to college, I study, so my cost is only tuition fees or my cost is only school fees. I definitely want entertainment in my life. We party, we go out, hang around with friends, so on and so forth. So primarily, our wants are an integral part of our existence. Although we have to rationalize them, but they are integral. So for our entertainment, we can have 30 rupees allocated out of the 100 pocket money that we have. The remaining 20 that are there will be towards my savings. So what are we saying? I will very systematically observe a pattern of 50, 30, 20. I have my needs in place. I will bring down my needs to 50 per month. I will arrange my wants in terms of whatever is the priority, and per month I will put 30 rupees aside. So when we are saying that I want to buy a pen, I want to buy this, I want to buy that, 30% of our pocket money can be accumulated towards whatever our wants are. And when we talk about future, we need to save, we need to do something today to be able to reap benefits tomorrow. That saving will be 20. So rule of 50, 30, 20 gives direction to our money in which slots it has to go. It is like, you know, your roller pin balls. You put it in a particular slot and it keeps running there. So the ball you put in, the needs has to be with the 50 mark. For wants has to be with the mark of 30. And 20 will be your savings. But is this the order in which you are supposed to do it? What is really going to be the order of doing things? First and foremost, what we generally do today, most of us, whenever we get the pocket money, we end up doing whatever we are tempted to do without rationalization. We spend our money, and if at all some residual remains, we call it that it is our savings. So what we are actually doing is the income, which is my pocket money. Say in this example, we are taking it as 100. Out of this, I am reducing whatever I am spending without any rationalizing. So need and want, I will say, forms up 80. So that is actually my spending. Out of this, whatever balance remains, we call it as our savings. Isn't it? We spend first, whatever remains, we call it, okay, this is what I save. But this, my friends, is an absolutely flawed mechanism. This is not the order in which we need to implement our budgeting. What we need to do is, first and foremost, out of the 100 that we have, saving is a mandatory step. So first and foremost, out of the 100, we have to just put aside 20 and stay with 80. Out of this 80, then we distribute as 50 or 30. You may want to change this depending upon your financial goals. You may want to make it 60 or this 20, or you may want to make this 40 and this a little lesser. You could rationalize based on what your goal is. But essentially what we are saying is, savings has to happen first as a mandatory step. It is like putting aside money first, then thinking about spending. Now my spending between needs and wants is also rationalized. So what is this rule of 50, 30, 20 really doing? It is taking care of my present needs. So today what I need, I'm not compromising on. Unlike in the earlier case, it may have been quite possible that when I am having 100 rupees and I wanted to buy something, I have just gone and spent 80 rupees on something that I wanted. So I'm just remaining with 20 rupees, which may not be enough for catering to my needs. So what happened? It all went haywire because I did not have a budget in place. But here, what I am doing is very organized and systematically allocating enough money for my most important needs, and then I'm also making provision for all the entertainment that I need in my life. So probably this too strikes the balance between needs and want. At the same time, I am not compromising on my future. I have already put aside money, or probably remember the tree that we were talking about, the seeds that we spoke about. This is your seed. This is your seed that you are actually planting for the tree, which is going to give you a lot of benefits. So every time the 20 rupee is, or 20% of your pocket money is put into savings over a long period, it will grow up to be a huge amount, which will become as a cushion or your saving or the tree that gives you a lot of shade. So that would be the money which will give you a lot of comfort. So budgeting is one of the most effective tool after we have struck wisdom between needs and wants. The implementation of needs and wants is going to be through budgeting, right? So now when we are talking about budgeting, or we are talking about this 100 rupees, here when we say, we should actually consider every place from where I get money, every source of income. In case of student life, what can be the different sources? In case of student life, it could be pocket money, it could be gift received on birthday, gift received on occasions like festivals. It could be cash prizes won in competitions. Why do we need to do this? So that we have a real amount. So if I am getting from various sources, if I am getting 200, adding up all of these sources, then I actually work out 20, 50, 30 and 20 on 200 and not on 100. Which means I will get actually a little more for my needs, I'll get a little more for my wants, and I'll get a little more for my savings. So considering all sources of income is going to be one of the important steps that we have to remember to do when it comes to our budgeting. All right. So I am sure that budgeting in and goal setting is now kind of quite clear, and we can now move to the next slide. Now when we talk about types of budgeting, so we looked at budgeting, we looked at goal setting. Now when we are implementing budgeting, there is one important element that we looked at over a long period. Inflation is going to affect us. Now, to meet this from our side, what do we need to do? We need to increase our savings more so that our progressive saving percentile is not impacted. So primarily, if we look at things here, it is as simple as playing your video games or your Xbox games, wherein what is the prime objective? The objective is save lives as much as possible, because we have this limited. Probably most games give us not more than 3 lives. Hence, I need to safeguard my lives and keep going, achieving new levels, upgrading, and also being progressive. So what are we trying to bring an analogy to? That like in our games where we have limited lives, we have just 3 lives and we have multiple levels to cross. We have so many different levels, so many complicated nuances coming at each level, and we have to tackle all of that only with our 3 lives that we have. If we fail to do that, we fail or we score less in the game. If we are successful with that, we go progressive in the game and we achieve newer heights time and again. So something very similar, guys, is happening in our entire financial planning. We have extremely limited sources of income. The source of income is absolutely limited. What can the sources really be? The sources could be 1, pocket money, 2, my bank account is earning interest, so the money lying in the bank is earning interest. I am getting birthday gift from my grandparents. or my friends have gifted me something, I have earned a prize in competition, but that's about it, right? We have limited sources of income, which means I have limited life. Within these sources of income, I have to achieve my entire life cycle, which means that in my school life, in my college life, in my midlife and my retired life, I have to go through with this limited sources of income. So when we talk about budgeting, we are talking that with my limited resources, I should be able to gain maximum monetary benefits or maximum utility value of the money that I hold. Is this very clear that what we are trying to do is more and more from the existing resources? Now, how can we actually improve our savings? There could be certain techniques that we can apply to improve our savings. Most of the times, we end up buying a lot because there is a peer pressure. My friend has it, so I want to have it. Or maybe it is also because I feel FOMO. I feel left out. Everybody around seems to be very competitive and I'm not there. So there could be multiple reasons why we want to possess something, to flaunt it and to show it as a matter of status. And most of the times it is an impulsive decision. Most of the times it is very, very impulsive. How do I not be impulsive? Now here, like we had this wonderful technique of rule of 50, 30, 20, here we have a very balanced approach rule, which is the rule of 7 days. As soon as you get this immediate gush of buying something and you know for sure that is not your need, but you cannot resist the temptation, then how do I train my mind for it? I only will just try and sit over it for 7 days. The minute I had the gush to buy on day 1, when I immediately wanted to buy, I will not buy and give myself 7 days from here. Each of these days, just for 5 minutes, I will ponder over what utility that item that I want to buy is going to bring into my life. So if I say there is a new mobile that I am craving for, how much is this new mobile going to add value to my current scenario is what I have to think about for each of these 7 days. The first day may be tilted that I still want it, because we are still trying to be biased towards our wants. The second day, we may feel there is, a 50-50. In some things it may help, in some things it may not help. But by the time third day comes, you would move to 60-40. And you would realize that essentially for the amount that is going out, I'm not really getting much value. And most of the time, studies have shown that when we apply this rule, by the 4th or the 5th day, we are almost there to understand that this is not adding value, and this impulsiveness was something which was wrong on my part. And by the time it is 6th or 7th day, you would know that you don't want that thing. So this rule of 7 days knocks a sense of balance in us. It allows us to rationalize, objectivize. We write on a piece of paper the reasons why we want to buy it and the reasons why it is not worth buying it. And by the time, most of the times it is found that almost in 90% of the cases, by the time you reach the 4th or the 5th day, the decision is that that was a unrequired, unnecessary want from my end, which was more impulsive and not really rational. So this is one of the very easy or very effective techniques that we can improve on our savings. Because end of the day, the more seeds, the more bigger the tree. The earlier the seeds, the more fruits I will get. So if I am able to save more in my student life, I will be able to see a taller tree giving me a lot of shade, of monetary benefits coming my way, or financial security coming my way in an early part of my life. Hence, budgeting is one of the most important concepts that we have to understand in our lifestyle if we have to even go close to understanding or being in the financial well-being space. What is financial well-being? I don't have to worry for money. Worry for money. I have followed my 50, 30, 20 very well. I have improved and I have improvised on my cravings for all the wants, and with the rule of 7 days, I am able to bring down unnecessary expenses and increase my savings. When I am able to achieve all of this, I will be able to achieve my financial goals much more systematically and much more effectively. So, first step, goal formation. Second step, prioritization. Third, amount. Fourth, giving the time limit. Now, with all of this, I go towards budgeting, which means I allocate my all sources of income into 50, 30, 20. After doing 50, 30, 20, I want to still be more efficient and improve on my savings so that I have a better future saving for myself. And there I will apply the rule of 7 days, improve my savings and try and get the maximum that I could from the money that I have from all sources that could form as income to me on a particular time or space. Now, when here this slide talks about different kinds of budgeting or different types of budgeting, budgeting clearly would mean that whatever I am spending, just list down all the expenses and look at it whether it is monthly, it is quarterly, or it is annual. Divide or bucket it into 3 categories. The first level of division will be, is this expense towards my need or is this expense toward my want? If it is toward my need, then what is the monthly outflow, quarterly outflow and annual? What can be monthly? My, say, every month's tuition fees. Tuition fees could be a monthly expenditure. Buying new clothes, maybe like once in 3 months I go and buy something for myself. So say new clothes could be a quarterly kind of a expense. Annual could be my school fees or college fees, which comes at an annual interval. So this is how you can bifurcate between monthly, quarterly and annually all the expenses that you have after understanding whether it's a need or a want. So this categorization will happen for need, this categorization will happen for want, and then we can apply the priority. Now, budgeting means understanding where I have to put my money. So When I know my expenses, I know exactly when I would need what amount of money and what is my pocket money today or what is my income today, how should I be distributing all of that to be able to cater to it. Now, what is the basis? How do we estimate for future is what this particular slide covers. Now, say on year 1 to year 2. This is the year in which you noted all your expenses. You have given it an understanding of all the expenses, whether they were monthly, whether they were quarterly, whether they were annually. We have a division of monthly, quarterly, annually, all the expenses that we have done. At the end of the year, we know how much have we spent. What amount did we spend? Incremental budgeting would mean that I take this year as my base year, that this is how my expenditure is, and I calculate what I will need for the second year based on this particular year. So all the expenses I will try and put those expenses, expected expenses for the second year. I will take this base year and do a plus minus of the expenses. So maybe I have already bought a bicycle. So obviously I'm not going to buy another cycle for the next year. So that expense may go away. We will have to take that real time check about plus and minus that we need to do from year 1 to year 2. And then add inflation to it. Say inflation is at the rate of 7%. So what I will do is take all these expenses and their amounts, do a plus minus of all the expenses. I will have the list of expenses and the base amount plus 7% is what I will need for my second year. This is called incremental budgeting, where you take the first year as the base and basis that 1 year, you will build up the second year's requirements of your monetary, requirements for the forthcoming year. Then what is zero base budgeting? I guess it is pretty easy to kind of now estimate that if incremental is using the first year as the base, then zero budgeting essentially would mean that there is no base. Hence, in zero budgeting, what it will do is it will simply take every year for what it is. At every year, everything starts from zero. I don't build a base. I take it year-wise. So there is no base. That is the reason it is called zero-based. In incremental, I will take first year as the base and build up from there. But in my zero-based budgeting, I will take every year individually without actually giving any significance to whatever was done in the past. So, no base, zero base. Of course, importance of budgeting is something that we have been talking about over and over again and again and again. So I would not want to repeat it once again, but for the emphasis, I would simply say that budgeting gives our money direction on where it has to be spent rather than us wondering where our money went without it. So when I have budgeting, it is like the lighthouse. It is throwing light on every aspect of our expenses and trying to tell us, no, this is not 50, it is exceeding 50. So like, the car alarms go off when it is going reverse, or when, we are trying to park, it kind of gives the warning signals. Budgeting keeps giving us different sign and signals at different intervals, trying to say, hello, you have crossed your limit and you need to come within it. So it gives us a direction. We know exactly how much, where we do need to spend, and we would keep on coming back on track thanks to the equations that we have built with budgeting. In absence of that, there is going to be absolute chaos, like it was in the case of Mr. A. As much as possible, as soon as I can, there would be these vague terms which will govern us, and we will never be able to estimate after what time, what amount of money should I be having, how much have I spent, is there any science of spending, is there any system that I have followed, will I be able to track back my expenses. All of this will be an absolute chaos in absence of budgeting, right? So very, very clearly we do understand now that as much as setting of financial goals is important, the implementation of it by virtue of budgeting and taking forward the different legs is equally important for our financial wellness. So let's move forward and try and see what we can further derive from different checks and controls that we can have to monitor the progress that we are making in our financial wellness. Once we have budgets in place, we divided 50, 30, 20, we understood how we will be saving, and as in our pocket money may increase. Suppose from year 1 to year 2, if it was 2000 was my pocket money per month and it has become 2500, we should look at incremental savings. $50, $30, $20 can be just a beginning to give a sense of direction. But we are always, once we have achieved that small target, we can always make that 20 into 30. And look at saving from this additional 500 that we have got. Instead of thinking that, oh, I have more pocket money, so I will be able to go out for more number of times, it should be actually balanced between I can go out and save as well. That should be the approach when we are talking about savings. Now, how do we understand what is a good saving ratio, or what is a saving ratio? A saving ratio is nothing but basic arithmetic. What have I saved divided by what is my income? And the percentage that we get is your savings ratio. What can we assume here is, say, if my income is 2000 and I have saved, say, 200. So, what is my ratio is what we have to calculate. It is something around 5% is, I think, what we will get. The more efficient we are about achieving a higher ratio, which means my numerator goes increasing to my denominator. If my income is 2000 and this month I saved 200, next month I was able to save 400, next month I was able to save 600, this would mean that there is a gradual increment in my savings ratio, because my numerator is going on increasing, which means my percentage will go on improving with every more saving that I am doing. So we can start with a 5%, we can understand that 5% is the basic target or the minimum target that we should be keeping when it comes to savings ratio. So what I am saving divided by what income I am getting should at least be 5%. It should be our endeavor and our target. But that is just to begin with. With passing of time, as we get used to the entire system of saving and being able to make money work more efficiently for us, we should actually look at improving this ratio and increase our savings more and more and more, and try to reach 30% as our savings ratio. That should really be the endeavor that we are looking at. Hence, after budgeting, we can plug in efficiencies, because now we have the ability to play with our numbers. We have techniques to increase our savings. We have clear psychological understanding to curtail our wants and understand that tomorrow is going to be brighter if I control today. So lack of self-control leading to financial chaos is not something that we should be ending up with, because of which we should very clearly follow this disciplined and a systematic approach towards most of it, so that we are ending up in a space where we have more surplus and which is able to cater to all the wants that we have, not just our needs, right? Let's move forward. Let's move to the next slide, which is understanding what is a consumption pattern that we follow. I'm sure you understand that a rural life is very different from an urban life. So when we talk about patterns of our expenses, we need to take cognizance of the fact that where do I reside? What are the typical expenses that I would face in my life? Say you are an earning member, or you have just started earning and you are staying in a metro city. Earlier, you were staying in a small town or rural side of India. There will be a stark difference in the way the consumption would move in both the areas or both jurisdictions, I would say, or localities. In rural, you will find a lot more basic expenses, which would be maybe, their addiction maybe to pan and tobacco, food grains, edible oil, transport. Most of the times in rural areas, you will find people have their own houses, which is missing in metro. Most of the times in metro, there will be a lot of people who would be staying on rent. So their essential difference would be there will be a lot of rent. There will be lot of commute charges that they are incurring. Lot of entertainment that they would be going through, with all the malls, all the movies in the multiplexes and the popular cinema houses, etc. So there will be a lot of expense towards lifestyle, which is your entertainment, which is your luxuries that you own up in your life. So metro will have again a lot more of consumption of technology products or gadgets. Hence, it is important to understand our expenses, or the pattern we draw up for our expenses is a lot more depending on different jurisdictions and variables, and not a very stereotype standard pattern. Hence, when we are making our budgets or when we are helping somebody else make their budgets, we need to take care of the consumptions very well. We need to take care of what is the difference in pricing that we will find, what is the nature of expenditure, where can we bring in efficiencies, so on and so forth. So expenditure pattern in India typically would differ between a metro and a rural, and the difference would be based on the lifestyle and what is available in the surroundings and what is required for survival. Right? Let's move ahead, having understood the expenditure pattern in India. So coming to the case study. Here is a very simple case study of a young student, Alok. He is in his 10th standard. He is studying with NISM, right? His parents are providing him with a pocket money of 2,500 every month. He is basically somebody who has not identified his needs and wants and is not able to manage his expenses, which means that his pocket money, 2,500 that he's getting, is not enough for him. Somewhere in the middle of the month, he finds himself asking for more money from his parents because he has exhausted the amount that he has already got. So very simplistically reading what is written, Alok is a student of 10th standard studying in NISM school in Mumbai. His parents provide him with a pocket money of 2,500 every month for his expenses. He is not able to manage his expenses with his pocket money for the past 2 months and has been forced to ask his parents for more money every month. Now, the parents are pretty cheesed off. They are not appreciating the splurging that Alok is getting into. So, they have decided, his parents are not willing to increase his pocket money and have asked Alok to manage his monthly expenses. Means parents have given a very clear indication that going forward, we are not going to give you any more money. You have to make do, or you have to actually work out 2,500 as what you get from us and no more. They have advised him to budget his expenses and plan his savings to ensure that his pocket money does not run out. So parents, being parents, have given a wise advice to Alok, which we have seen all through, that understanding of budget or budgeting our expenses is the only way in which we can control our expenses, we can measure where we are going wrong, and we can take corrective actions so that we do not keep repeating the wrongs that we are doing. So Alok's parents have also advised Alok that if you have to ensure that your expenses stay within the 2,500 that you have, you first need to budget your expenses and then plan to save so that you do not end up asking for more pocket money from us. Now let's look at how Alok used to be spending the monthly expenditure. Now here's the exercise. Alok has categorized all his expenses. He has put together all the outings that he used to do with his friends and the number of times in a month that he used to go out with friends and spend on all the ice creams and entertainment is 750. And he used to do that every month. So he put a number that this is my spending and this is my monthly outgoing for this particular kind of activity. Again, he is a little spoiled brat, so he always wanted more new clothes, trendy clothes, and every quarter he would end up buying new clothes worth 700. Outing with friends was always on cards. Partying with friends was also a significant activity. on a monthly basis. So he was spending 500 on outing with friends. Travel expenses, going to friends' house, going to college, going to tuitions, or wherever you are commuting, all of that, travel expenses are kind of non-negotiable. When you go from a place to B place, you will have to travel. But the important part is that by which mode are you traveling. However, he used to spend around 400. Again, an active kid with parties, always had gifts to be given to his friends. So, roughly on a monthly basis, he would actually spend around 250 rupees every month for gifting his friends on one or the other occasion. Library obviously is one of the very important aspects of learning, education, and again something where you gain knowledge from. Hence, library expenses again become a little bit non-negotiable, but those used to amount to 300. So after first activity of listing all the expenses, so the expenses were listed first by Alok. Then after listing the expenses, he put the amounts that he is spending towards each kind of activity. After that, he actually categorized whether that expenditure that he has is monthly, quarterly. So, the thing that we had seen in the previous slide, we are applying exactly the same thing, that we are listing down our expenses. We are putting numerical values so we can measure it, and also whether it is monthly or quarterly. So, it will help us understand at what regular interval we need that money, right? So, each of the expenses have been categorized as monthly or quarterly. Is the exercise very clear to everybody? I'll just recap it for a very simple reason, because we will be heading to the solution and this slide will disappear then. What we are doing is, Alok is having an expenditure of more than 2,500. If we are taking a total of this is amounting to 2,900. What is Alok's pocket money? 2,500. Which means every month he is exceeding by 400. So what is his saving? 0. In fact, he is negative. Because of this situation, that he is already spending more than what he is getting, his parents have given him an ultimatum that you need to figure out a way in which you bring down your expenses to 2,500. For which Alok has listed down all the expenses, put how much he is spending, and categorize the expenses into the buckets of periodicity, which is your monthly or quarterly. Right? So, let's go forward and see what next is Alok going to do. Like we saw, his pocket money 2,500, but his monthly expenditure 2,900, which means he is shooting up by 400. We saw that his savings are in fact negative and not even 0. Right? So, what he has been doing is borrowing from his parents because he was shooting up by 400. Now, when we were looking at budgeting, or when we were looking at the rule of 50, 30, 20, I had given a chronology, or we had discussed a chronology in which we should be applying that rule. And that rule needs to apply that I have to do my saving first, so I provide for my future before I spend for my present. I am actually taking care of future first and then spending for my present, which means I'm ensuring that I am securing some money for tomorrow. So saving has to be first and then expenses. Now, after putting the budget in place, Alok decides that at least 600 I should be able to save after a period of 4 months. So this becomes his financial goal to achieve. That I want to save at least 600 rupees at the end of 4 months. So what we are saying is 600 divided by 4 is the amount I will have to save every month, which is 150 rupees, right? So, applying what we just discussed, as soon as he gets his income, which is 2,500, he got his income 2,500, he has to first put his savings, reduce his savings, and then look at this is the balance now for all my needs and wants for the month. Are we understanding, or are we getting where we are? That first I provide for my savings and then I actually look at my needs and wants. So present comes after providing for future. Hence his goal is 4 months may I have to save 600. So per month I have to save 150. So I put aside 150 plus, and then this is the residual amount which I will have to divide between my needs and wants. Let's move further. What are we supposed to do? Out of this 2350, we have to take care of the remaining expenses. So 150 forms 6% of the overall 2500. So when we saw the previous slide, we have understood that Alok has a goal of saving 600 after 4 months, for which he has to always deduct his savings first, which is 150 rupees. Now the balance that he has is 2350, and he has to bring down his expenses in order to meet this number, which presently was 2900. Which means he has to reduce it to this number. How will he do it? Again, the principle that we had learned, that we will have to first decide whether it is a need or a want. Once we decide it is a need or a want, we will have to apply the rule of priority. Now, if we look at beverages and ice creams, clearly it is a want, not a need. Hence, there is a good amount of scope that he found that he can reduce here. Clothes again may not be as much of a want. It could be an essential also for different things or different seasons. Maybe season is changing and clothes of a different kind are required. So, giving that benefit of doubt, there can be a marginal reduction here. Outing with friends was 500. His original cost of beverages was 750 and his outing with friends was 500, which means overall on an entertainment he was splurging a lot more. So there is a huge scope for this want to come down or improvise. Similarly, when we talk about travel expenses, I can definitely, even if it is my need, look at more economic ways of traveling by using public transport or more efficient modes of transport. So again, there is a scope here that he could have brought down his spending. If you are living in a social environment and partying is a part of the culture, so obviously you are taking gifts, you may want to give gifts. So yes, it is definitely a want, but something which is more immediate This want is more internal, this want is more external, which means that this we can curtail to a little lesser amount than what we can curtail to an internal cause, which is just splurging. Library, of course, there can be no compromise here because this is all about growth, this is all about knowledge and being progressive in life. So very, very clearly what we understand is that 1, 2 are the primary places where we could have bought significant changes, which is what he has done. From the original 750, he proportionately reduced his expenditure to bring down his expenses within 2350. So 750, he made it 650. 700, he reduced to 600. Year was the major outgoing reduction that he did, because obviously this is absolutely optional and it is not going to affect our lifestyle in any shape and form. So here he brought a significant change from 500 to 250. Travel expenditure, he started using a little more economic friendly or pocket friendly means of transport and brought it down to 325. Further, again, because gifts are with limited budget and it is something which is of immediate want, he tried to squeeze in a little bit but could only manage to squeeze as much as little could be. But it is an immediate want, so there was not a very quick corrective action that could be put in place. Library membership remains unchanged. So typically what have we done is we have brought in efficiencies of something that was 2,900 as an expenditure. We have used the tool of budgeting to bring down the amount of spending to 2,500. Because we decided the budget to be 2,500, what have we done is we have given a definite purpose to our money, that I can only spend this much, and for this much I need to prioritize my needs, I need to understand my wants. Based on that, I will incur my expenditure, and from that 2,500 I will bring out maximum worth of what I can, and in the process I will first be saving. So I'm just not spending, it is just not an outflow that I'm looking at bringing efficiency into, I'm also inculcating a step of future. So when I total this becomes my 100% of 2,500. And this is how we can actually bring in efficiencies in creating budget. So what I mentioned, budget gives a direction to our money. What have we done? We have fixed an amount because of which we will have to redistribute our expenses. So it gives a direction where we can spend more, where we can spend less. It gives monetary values, and when it gives all the monetary values, we are able to measure where are we going wrong and take very immediate corrective actions. So here is one small exercise that we did, which can actually be the most efficient tool that we can use for our financial wellness. So let's have a very, very quick recap of this entire chapter that we have done today. First and foremost, what can be a key takeaway for today's chapter on financial planning is saving is going to be a prerequisite to financial wellness. We have to have an understanding of saving, which means rule of 50, 30, 20. 20 is the most important step to be taken before we move to 50 and 30, for which we will need our clear financial goals. What are the 4 steps? Identify, understand need and want and decide the order of importance, which is giving a priority. Then attaching or understanding the amount and time within which we need to fulfill the goal. This will complete our goal, which essentially has to be SMART. Our financial goal has to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant and realistic, and time bound. This will give us a sense of direction, a sense of timing. So how long we will take to achieve our goal, how much do I have to save to achieve my goal, where is my goal, after how long do I have to achieve it, and so on and so forth. All directions we get from SMART. When we follow these particular steps, we are able to slowly, systematically move in the right direction to get the maximum benefit of the money that we have today on our hand. Again, this is one of the very famous quote from Mr. Warren Buffett. I'm sure each one of you must be already knowing his name, who is a very huge name in the financial world. He says very clearly that do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. Which is very clearly what we are saying, attend to your 20% first. The earlier we start this journey, the better, because the early bird gets the worm. As many seeds I am able to pour, that many trees I will get for my future. So that many more branches, that many more financial wellness space that I will be into. The earlier, the more that I save, the more my money will grow. The more my money will go, the more financial security I will have. The more financial security I will have, I will be in a complete financial wellness space. So the earlier I start, the easier the journey is. Very simple, like, when you learn swimming at an early age, it becomes a lifestyle statement. You never forget about it. So when early habits come into play, like we saw in the marshmallow study that had happened, that the earlier the kids had adopted to self-control, the better they could perform in their life going forward in future. So the earlier we start, the better it actually gets. And when we are efficient with our financial planning, we will definitely ensure a good security in future. So the more efficient, the more disciplined we are in trying to put together all the different parts. Like in a game, we have very limited lives, so our income is very limited. We have to gain more levels in the game of financial wellness with the limited life. So with limited income, when we have to reach new levels, we really have to bring in efficiencies. So I save more and be more efficient, and I will be able to achieve newer levels more and more in my life. Like Uber and Ola app example that we saw, the direction or the distance or how am I supposed to go, which vehicle am I supposed to take will only and only be defined by the destination. So destination becomes our very beginning point. And like we started with the psychological aspect of this entire module, that where is our mindset and where does our monkey mind keep dancing around when we think about all the possible needs and wants. A very simple thing for the closure of this particular chapter, that when it comes to financial planning, it is actually 80% is your behavior and only 20% is your knowledge. So having this entire knowledge, if we are not able to apply, if we cannot have that behavior, if we cannot inculcate those habits, knowing about all of this is in vain. Hence, a good mindset, an open mindset to adopt the behavior that we need to improvise and achieve the target of maximizing whatever I can get from my existing money. Best utility is most important. Otherwise, 20% is just knowledge, which means that knowledge not put to use is going to be absolutely waste. So with that, we can very quickly call it an end of this chapter, where we are very sure now how to plan our finances, how to look at our money, how to budget, how to save, maximize our saving, distinguish between needs and want, and most importantly, achieve this 80% and change that we need in our behaviors. Thank you guys. Hope this was very helpful.